Hello, class. This is Dr. Benson. What I'm going to do today is to review the instructional materials activity that you did and that I've already graded, and you should already see my comments. The assessment activities that I've graded, but I haven't posted the grades. I posted the grades for the others, so you don't have my comments, but you should have them by the end of the day. And for the formative evaluation, for the evaluation activity that you will start on Wednesday. In a separate video, I'm going to talk about your final project and the things that are due, like by the end of the semester. I forget the dates now, but we'll talk about that in a separate video, so this doesn't go too long. So let's talk about your instructional strategy, your instructional materials activity. In general, you all did a good job with this, but let me just make a couple of comments. The content outline, the topic outline, most of you were able to revise this, and I don't want to say considerably, but you were able to use the findings of your needs assessment in order to refine your topic outline. A couple of you got a bit ahead of yourselves, and instead of generating a topic outline or a content outline, you generated the agenda for your class session that included, activities and breaks and that kind of thing. We haven't gotten there yet, and that's been one of the biggest challenges in this class. Uh, Most of you were ready to create the instruction on day one, so you already had in mind how you were going to deliver your instruction. I hope that as we've gone through this semester that you've made some adjustments in your thinking and that you've come up with some new strategies that you can include as opposed to the ones that you were thinking about including on day one. And we'll get to see that in your final project. So your topic outline, once again, we're just talking about the content. And that's what I was looking for. And I'm asking you to give me this again when you turn in your final project. A couple of you turned in your whole content analysis document. I don't want that. All I want is the outline, uh, just so that I'll have that in front of me as I look at my plan, and also so that I will make it available to all your peers as well. The the next thing you had to do was look at your objectives, and many of you were able to also revise your objectives. Um, I think most of you have gotten tired of criteria and conditions because either you dumped them, either you literally stopped putting them in, or you changed them all to say at the end of the course, which is the same way as saying I'm going to ignore these. But that's perfectly fine. I don't think it's perfectly fine to just say at the end of the instruction for all of them, including your enabling objectives. If you're going to do that, just leave them off because they don't add value. The purpose of them is to add value, so that as you are planning your instruction, you will understand the conditions under which you want your learners to perform an activity. Now that we have looked at this materials activity, you might be able to go back and look at your that condition in a new way. So maybe they need some materials in order to perform this particular objective. It's not clear. But anyway, if you're just saying at the end of the lesson for everything, you can just leave that off. It's just because it doesn't add any value. And I won't kill you over it for doing that. Let's see. Some of you use compound objectives, and by that I mean that you would have list and develop. So you would have two behavioral verbs in the same objective. And while that's okay, when you're designing instruction, sometimes it's easier to put the higher level objectives, which would be develop, and make that your terminal objectives. And any lower level verbs, you put them in enabling objectives. So in order to develop something, maybe you need to be able to list something first. So that's the nature of that. Once again, we can work it either way, and it should be clear that the instructional objectives that you're writing now, that's not the language you have to use when you present it to your learners. You don't have to say, definitely, you don't have to say at the end of the lesson you will be able to. You typically write that. But when you're talking to people about your objectives, you can use any kind of language you want to use. I think in nursing, you guys like to use demonstrate and understanding of, or something like that. Now, even though I didn't let you use that in this class, it's perfectly fine for you to use that in your instructional materials. And some of you just meet, and especially for something like this professional development plan, you can say something as simple as today we're going to learn about EpiPens in order to deal with whatever that thing is. A prophylaxis. I don't know. I probably got the wrong word. I think that was the wrong word. But anyway, I think I better move on from that. Anyway, um, in the strategies part of this, for your instructional strategies mapping table, the biggest issue that I saw was everybody didn't include all 20 of their bunk activities. And I can see how you may have missed this, though I think I mentioned it on an earlier video. The idea here is you or your team took possession of 20. Everybody took possession of 20 so that we could cover the 100. So even if there are activities that don't necessarily fit your instruction, I need you to include them because these are the way because looking at your charts are the ways that your classmates who didn't have those activities get another look at them. So you're doing this for yourself, but you're also doing it for your classmates. So I've made a note on your assignment if you didn't include all 20 that you did. And I think I took away some points on the discussion board, and I will do that, but I'll give them back to you when you submit it in your final with your final project, and you have it all. And I'm pretty sure some of you are going to submit it this week in your instructional strategies 2 activity because once again I'm asking you to use that table again. Um, you also gave me you told me what your template was going to be for your instructional design plan. And I was very pleased to see that a variety of templates. Several of you chose Gagne, but there were some other templates as well. So I'm very excited to see what your plans are going to look like. So good for you. One other thing in this materials mapping table, and I think I gave you that feedback. Oh no, in the objectives content mapping table. What I was looking for was the source of the content. Like, if you are the source of the knowledge, it's fine to say it's you. But usually the source, I shouldn't say usually, but sometimes the source is a book that you as a teacher will use. So you aren't the source, the book is actually the source. So I'm trying to figure out what's your source material. That's what I'm trying to figure out in this particular table. And it's important for you as an instructor to know what the source material is so that you know where to go when you start designing your content, your instruction. See, I think that was it with this activity. As I said, you all did very well, and all of this is these things you're gonna see again. So okay, now let's talk about your assessment strategies activity. You will probably see this video before your grades are posted. So I'm just going to give you some general comments on this one. A couple of things. Once again, what happened here, and it happened, um, you didn't cover all 20 bunk activities that were assigned to you, or I think some of you may have had less than that if your group was smaller. But all of your bunk activities need to be included. Um, In some cases, some of you are more descriptive in what your assessment strategies would be for the bunk activities than others. I don't have to go over these in detail with you because you saw that as you read your peers' papers. So my comment to you is instead of telling everybody you need to write a sentence about each one, and I don't even want to say a sentence, maybe a few words about each one, I'm going to say that it needs to be clear. For example, if your activity was a project and you tell me you're going to use a rubric, that's clear. If your activity is a project and you tell me that you're going to use a simulation, that's not clear. It's not clear what you're going to do. So your idea is to be clear so that your peers can know how you plan to use this strategy to adjust to assess this particular bunk activity. I thought some of you did a very good job when you said that the activity itself was an assessment strategy. So good for you. Another thing that you did here was to talk about how you can use assessment for diversity. And I really like the different answers that came up. That's why it's important for you to look at what your peers read. Because I can think in one case, and I don't remember who, and that's a good thing. I don't remember who wrote what. One group said that assessment can't be the only way, and that's very very true. That you address that there are better ways, and this assessment can't be the way that you look to address issues of diversity, inclusion, and equity. And other people rightly stated that one way you can do it is by incorporating a variety of assessment strategies. Another group talked about using blogs and journaling as a way for students you to use more self-expression and making those safe areas for students to express different perspectives. And so all of those are ways that assessment can be used to do those things. So I appreciate everybody really thinking about those questions, and I'm appreciating too the comments that you're making on each other's work. Sometimes you think that the value is in doing the work, and while there is value in doing the work, there's also value in looking at your peers' work and making comments on them, especially in the nurses' cases, because you know more about your content than I do. Because something may look totally strange to me, but it won't look strange to you all because you're nurses. So it's going to make it interesting when I'm having the nursing group to review the plans by the IT group and the IT group to review some of the plans by the nursing group. So it'll be interesting to see those different perspectives brought to bear. I think that's it for this assessment activity. It really built on the previous activity. So good job, gang. And our last discussion board activity for the semester is a formative summative evaluation activity. The chapter in the text is based on Kirkpatrick's four levels of evaluation, which you were first introduced to when we did the instructional design models at the beginning of the class. I think the textbook does a good review of it, so I didn't identify any external materials for this particular chapter. But the thing to remember is about evaluation is that you are no longer assessing students for grading purposes, but you're really now assessing your instruction and your instructional materials. So the idea is you could test whether students learn, but what you do with that information is not necessarily give the student a grade, but you go back and look at your assessments, you go back and look at your instruction, and make sure that you addressed what the students missed and that you addressed it in a way that was effective. And I mean, it's something that we all do all the time. If you give students a test and everybody missed the same question, the first thing you do is you go back and make sure that you actually covered the question. Or it doesn't even have to be everybody. If a larger majority of the students, you just make sure that that was addressed in your content. And sometimes you try to be obscure in your questioning. But the idea is that now we're trying to assess our instruction. Was our instruction effective? And the book and Kirkpatrick and the book talks about two ways of doing that. There's the formative evaluation and the summative. And the summative is where the book talks about Kirkpatrick's four levels. I'm not asking you to do anything with those four. I have two questions that I want you to address where you reflect on the use of summative environment in your practice. Where I want you to focus for this activity is on the formative assessment. Specifically, what I want you to do is to generate an expert review checklist. As I've told you, and as we've talked about since the beginning of the class, we're going to do some peer feedback. And in the peer feedback mode, you're all going to act as expert reviewers. So you'll act as expert reviewers of plans submitted by some of your peers in your section, and then some of the students in the other section. So you will be expert reviewers. In order to be expert reviewers, you need to know what your evaluator wants you to look at. And that's the purpose of putting together the expert review checklist. You're going to create that so that you can give it to your reviewers and they can use that to judge your plan or to give you feedback on your plan. And I think it's very important that I use the word feedback as opposed to the word judge. We aren't really judging your plan. We're trying to give you formative feedback so that you can improve your plan. So for this activity, I'm not asking you to conduct the evaluation. Let's be clear on that. All I'm asking you to do is to create this checklist. And that wording, I looked at that wording. It says for your formative evaluation activity, you are asked to conduct expert reviews of your instructional plan. That's actually for your formative evaluation report assignment. So yes, you're going to create these checklists here. The students in the class are going to use them to review. And I'm also asking you to get somebody on the outside to review, and you will analyze and summarize those reviews in your formative evaluation report. So once again, all you're doing here is creating the checklist. You have two examples of checklists that you can modify. The idea is that those checklists are general. So if you use them, you will get general feedback. If you want something that's specific to what you've done, you need to include those type of specific questions. I've given you some guidelines. For example, you always want to make sure that you give people room to write some kind of answer. I mean, write some response as opposed to saying yes or no, because yes or no doesn't get you very far. Anyway, I think that's about it for this one. You will submit it, I think, the following Tuesday, as we normally do, and you'll have some time to get some feedback on it and to make some revision before you give it to your classmates and your expert reviewers in order to review uh, your project, your plans. I'm going to end this now, and I'm going to do another video that talks about those things that are your final things that are due in this class by the time the semester is over. This is Dr. Benson. Let me know if you have questions.